My grandfather used to say, "True success is like a mountain under ice. People only see the tip." I never understood what he meant until I became that mountain myself. My name is Isabella Reyes, and this is the story of how I went from being the overlooked sister in my family's world of glittering facades, to the one who made it all crumble in a single night. I grew up above our family's modest bakery in San Diego's Barrio Viejo, where the scent of cinnamon and sugar mixed with my parents' exhaustion. My childhood was built on dough, debt, and determination. By the time I was 9, I could box pastries faster than the adults. By 13, I was finding accounting mistakes in my uncle's ledgers and suggesting bulk deals that saved the bakery hundreds. My grandfather used to pat my head and laugh. A business brain in a baker's apron. While other kids played soccer, I was calculating margins on sticky napkins. I didn't resent it, it felt natural. I loved the rhythm of numbers, the way structure made chaos manageable. My parents worked themselves to the bone to send me to college, and I swore I'd turn their sacrifices into something extraordinary. At 22, I launched Nuvexa, a small microloan app designed to help immigrant-owned businesses get fair financing. It started as a side project in my dorm room, running on ramen and pure willpower. By 27, it had evolved into Nuvexa Capital, a fintech company with offices downtown and partnerships with major credit unions. But I never changed. I stayed quiet, focused, content being underestimated. Then came Adrian, a public school teacher with kind eyes and a laugh that made my bad days feel small. We met at a used bookstore when a stack of old finance textbooks fell on us. Coffee turned into dinner, dinner turned into love, and 6 months later, he proposed in the same aisle where we met. My entire family celebrated. Well, almost. My older sister Valeria, the golden child, offered a champagne toast laced with subtle venom. She was everything I wasn't: glamorous, loud, and unapologetically adored. As the marketing director for Crest Point Investments, she built her entire identity around power and appearances. She smiled like she owned every room she walked into, and often she did. At that family dinner, she looked me up and down, glass in hand. "So I say," she said sweetly, "still managing that little app thing?" Smiled. "Yeah. It's keeping me busy." She laughed, shaking her head. "You were always the modest one." I could have told her that my little app had just closed a multi-million-dollar licensing deal with her firm's competitors, but I didn't. I'd learned to let people underestimate me. It made their shock later so much sweeter. What Valeria didn't know was that Crest Point had quietly been using my company's data tools for over a year. In fact, their CEO had emailed me personally to discuss expanding our partnership. So when Valeria bragged about her brilliant new marketing strategy, I just sipped my coffee and said, "That's great, Val." "Really?" Then came her next move, an invitation to her own celebration gala, hosted at the lavish Sterling Manor, to commemorate her promotion. She called me personally, her tone dripping with performative kindness. "I say, since you've got experience with service," she began, "could you oversee the catering team? I'd hate for anything to go wrong." I bit back a smile. "Of course, Valeria," I said. "I'd be happy to." Adrian frowned when I told him, "You don't have to do that. We could just skip it." But my mind was already spinning. That morning I'd received a message from Edward Crest, CEO of her firm. He wanted to meet the founder of Nuvexa in person, and he'd be attending the gala. The irony was too perfect. For the first time in years, I wasn't just showing up to my sister's world. I was about to quietly take it from her, one reveal at a time. The night of the gala arrived with the kind of humidity that made even luxury shimmer with sweat. Sterling Manor looked like something out of a movie. Marble floors, towering chandeliers, and a valet line so long it backed up onto the street. Adrian drove while I adjusted the simple black dress I'd chosen. No sequins, no flash, nothing that screamed for attention. "You sure about this?" he asked as we parked near the catering entrance. I smiled faintly. "More than I've ever been." Inside, chaos reigned. Servers darted back and forth like startled birds. Platters weren't plated, the champagne wasn't chilled, and Valeria's assistant was nearly in tears. "Miss Reyes," a young caterer stammered, "your sister wants the champagne served precisely at 8:15 for her speech, but she also said to keep trays circulating non-stop. We're short 2 staff members." I rolled up my sleeves, channeling years of bakery rushes and midnight deadlines. "Don't worry," I said calmly. "We'll make it work." While others scrambled, I coordinated quietly, fixing timing charts, adjusting rotations, smoothing tension with soft words and steady hands. I'd spent my childhood orchestrating chaos. This was nothing new. By 7:30, the scene outside had transformed. Guests flooded in, Miami's elite, politicians, investors, influencers. Valeria glided through the crowd in a silver gown, every hair in place, every smile rehearsed. She sparkled, the way she always wanted the world to see her. As I directed servers past the ballroom doors, I heard her laugh ripple through the air. "Did you see ISA?" she said to a circle of executives. "She's helping with catering tonight." I told her she's finally found her calling, back where she's comfortable. Laughter followed. My mother, Elena, added in a syrupy tone, "We've always encouraged her, of course. But she prefers simple things." I kept walking, tray in hand, heart steady. Let them laugh. They'd built their lives on illusion. I'd built mine on reality. At 7:55, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Luca, my CFO. "Contract signed. Official as of 7:50 p.m. Congratulations, boss. Right on schedule." Nearby, Valeria raised her glass, tipsy from attention and champagne. "When Adrian told me he was marrying ISA," she said loudly enough for half the room to hear, "I thought he was joking. A baker turned tech tinkerer. Bless him. He must be very patient." A few polite chuckles followed. Even Adrian looked uncomfortable from across the room. My mother added with false concern, "We're thinking of helping her buy a modest condo. She can't live in those downtown shoeboxes forever." Their words didn't sting anymore. I'd grown numb to them years ago. But tonight, that numbness was about to turn into something far sharper. At exactly 8:10, the ballroom doors opened again. A subtle hush fell across the chatter. Heads turned toward the entrance as Edward Crest, the CEO himself, stepped in. Valeria nearly tripped rushing to greet him. "Mr. Crest," she gushed, her smile brighter than the chandeliers. "I'm so honored you came." He nodded politely, scanning the room. His gaze landed on me, still in my simple black dress, holding a tray of champagne. His brow furrowed. Recognition flickered. "Oh, don't mind her," Valeria said quickly. "That's my sister Isabella. She's helping with the staff tonight." Edward didn't respond. His eyes stayed on me as I set the tray down and walked forward. "Good evening, Edward," I said softly, extending my hand. "I'm glad you could make it." The room stilled. Valeria blinked. "Wait, you two know each other?" Edward smiled. "Of course. Ms. Reyes here is the founder and CEO of Nuvexa Capital, the company that finalized its acquisition of Crest Point Investments just 15 minutes ago." The air fractured. Glasses stilled midair. Even the string quartet faltered into silence. Valeria's jaw dropped. "Acquisition? What are you talking about?" Edward turned to her, unbothered. "Didn't you hear? Nuvexa now owns a majority stake in Crest Point. I assumed this event was meant to announce it." Gasps rippled through the room. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Adrian stood frozen. I stepped closer, my voice calm and measured. "Oh, don't look so shocked, Val. You've been using my technology for over a year. I just decided it was time to make it official. The thing about being underestimated is simple. When no one's watching, you learn how to move in silence. And tonight, silence was about to thunder. The room was frozen, every eye glued to me, every whisper sharp enough to cut glass. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning and the slow drip of champagne from a broken flute. Valeria's laugh came out brittle, like glass cracking under pressure. "You're joking, right?" she stammered. "Isabella runs a bakery app." "She doesn't." "She does," Edward interrupted smoothly. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone used to ending conversations. "Nuvexa Capital finalized the acquisition this evening. As of now, Ms. Reyes is your new executive chair." A gasp rippled through the crowd like an electric current. Even the string quartet forgot to play. My mother, Elena, looked pale, clutching her pearl necklace as though it could explain this moment. "That can't be right," she whispered. "Issa never said." I stepped forward, calm, measured, unshaken. "No, I didn't. Because people reveal who they are when they think you're beneath them." Edward smiled slightly. "That's a philosophy I can get behind." Across the room, Adrian's eyes were wide, equal parts pride and disbelief. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Valeria, on the other hand, Looked like her world had split in half. Her voice rose, shrill and desperate. You humiliated me. In front of my team, my boss. Your former boss, Edward corrected gently. Laughter, nervous, uneasy, fluttered around the room. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You did this to yourself, Val. I just stopped pretending not to notice. She turned red, gripping her champagne glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. You've always been jealous, she hissed. Of me, of my career, of everything I built. You mean everything I built for you? I said quietly. Your department runs on the analytics Nuvexa designed. The campaign that earned you your last promotion. Our data models made that possible. You've been using my work for years, and never once said thank you. A stunned murmur rolled through the guests. The illusion that had protected her for so long was unraveling in real time. Edward cleared his throat again, cutting through the noise. Since we're all here, let's make it official. Nuvexa Capital is now the majority shareholder of Crest Point Investments. Effective immediately, we'll be transitioning leadership and strategy oversight under Ms. Reyes' team. I nodded, smiling faintly. Thank you, Edward. And Valeria, I believe you were planning to give a speech tonight. Would you like to proceed, or shall I? The color drained from her face. Her glass slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the marble hall. She turned away and fled, heels clicking like a retreating drumbeat. My mother followed quickly, eyes full of confusion and shame. For a long moment the room stayed quiet. Then the crowd began to murmur again. Admiration, disbelief, awe. Someone clapped, then another. Edward raised his glass. To women who build quietly and strike loudly. I let a small smile curl at the corner of my lips. To underestimated minds, I said, clinking his glass. As the orchestra recovered and the conversation resumed, Adrian approached me slowly. Why didn't you tell me? He asked softly. I looked at him, my expression calm but tired. Would it have changed anything? Would you have stood up for me when they laughed, if you'd known I owned everything they worshipped? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I don't, I said gently. Tonight isn't about what you didn't see. It's about what I finally stopped hiding. Behind us, the flash of cameras began. Every major investor in the room was already texting their PR teams. The story would be everywhere by morning. The gala wound down like a storm losing its rage. Quiet, but still humming with the aftershocks. The crowd's polished laughter returned, but it was thinner now, uncertain. Every glance darting between me and the empty staircase Valeria had fled up minutes earlier. Edward excused himself, already fielding congratulatory handshakes from investors. I stood near the edge of the ballroom, the buzz of whispered gossip around me like white noise. My pulse had slowed. The reveal was done, and for the first time I wasn't the shadow in my sister's story. She was in mine. I turned toward the bar where my father, Rafael Reyes, stood silently, staring into a half-empty glass of rum. He hadn't said a word all night. When I approached, he exhaled slowly, his eyes weary but proud. You remind me of your grandfather, he said quietly. He used to say the only way to expose pride is with truth. He nodded. He was right. Before he could say more, Valeria's voice sliced through the murmurs behind us. She had returned, face pale but painted over with defiance, her silver gown slightly wrinkled, her heels trembling with every step. You made a fool of me, she spat. In front of every contact I've built, every person who matters in this city. I turned to her, calm as still water. No, Valeria. You made a fool of yourself. I just stopped cushioning the fall. But this wasn't revenge. It was revelation. And the best part about revealing the truth is watching those who buried it dig their own graves. The gala wound down like a storm losing its rage. Quiet, but still humming with the aftershocks. The crowd's polished laughter returned, but it was thinner now, uncertain. Every glance darting between me and the empty staircase Valeria had fled up minutes earlier. Edward excused himself, already fielding congratulatory handshakes from investors. I stood near the edge of the ballroom, the buzz of whispered gossip around me like white noise. My pulse had slowed. The reveal was done, and for the first time I wasn't the shadow in my sister's story. She was in mine. I turned toward the bar where my father, Rafael Reyes, stood silently, staring into a half-empty glass of rum. He hadn't said a word all night. When I approached, he exhaled slowly, his eyes weary but proud. "You remind me of your grandfather," he said quietly. "He used to say the only way to expose pride is with truth." He nodded. He was right. Before he could say more, Valeria's voice sliced through the murmurs behind us. She had returned, face pale but painted over with defiance, her silver gown slightly wrinkled, her heels trembling with every step. "You made a fool of me," she spat. "In front of every contact I've built, every person who matters in this city." I turned to her, calm as still water. "No, Valeria. You made a fool of yourself. I just stopped cushioning the fall." She stepped closer, shaking. "You think owning a company gives you the right to destroy me?" "Destroy you?" I said softly. "You've been erasing me for years. I just finally drew the line where you couldn't cross it." Her eyes glistened with tears, not from regret but rage. "I quit. I won't work for you." "That's your choice," I said evenly. "But before you walk out, understand this. Everyone in this room saw what happened tonight. Every partner, every board member, every PR contact you've spent a decade charming. They all saw how you treated the very person who now signs your checks." Her voice faltered. "You wouldn't." "I don't need to," I replied. "They'll draw their own conclusions." Her posture deflated. For the first time, I saw the fear behind her arrogance. "What do you want from me, Isa?" she whispered. I met her eyes. "I want you to learn." She blinked. "Learn what?" "That respect doesn't follow titles or status. It's earned, and it's returned." I took a sip of champagne, letting the silence stretch. "Starting Monday, you'll report to the Nuvexa Community Initiative, our program to help small local businesses access funding. You'll be assisting with outreach and microloan approvals." Her mouth fell open. "You want me to play secretary to shop owners?" "No," I said, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "You'll report to someone far more experienced." "Mom." The color drained from her face completely. "You're joking." "She still runs the family bakery," I said. "And unlike you, she's built something real. She'll be leading the project, and you'll learn from her." For once. Before she could respond, our mother appeared. Eyes red, expression stiff. "Isabella," she said, voice trembling. "Surely we can discuss this privately. We're family." I turned to her fully, meeting her gaze. "Family." My voice was steady, quiet, but it sliced through the noise. "When you cropped me out of family photos. When you let Valeria mock me and called it harmless fun. When you laughed at my work because you thought it wasn't real." She looked down, hands twisting in front of her. "We didn't know you had money." "Exactly," I said, my tone sharp but calm. "You thought I wasn't worthy of respect because I didn't." From the corner of the room, my father set his glass down with a deliberate clink. His voice, usually gentle, carried weight this time. "She's right," he said quietly. "We let pride rot the heart of this family. Maybe this is what it took to wake us up." Valeria stood speechless, caught between fury and humiliation. But the night wasn't finished teaching lessons. Because just when I thought I'd closed one chapter, another betrayal was waiting for its turn to be exposed. The ballroom had nearly emptied, leaving behind echoes of champagne flutes and the faint scent of lilies. Staff cleared tables quietly, careful not to disturb the tension still humming through the air. I stood by the tall glass doors overlooking the courtyard, breathing in the cool night air. Adrian approached slowly, his footsteps hesitant. The same man who once steadied me with laughter now looked like he was walking on glass. "I say," he began softly, I didn't know." I turned to face him. "Didn't know what?" "That I wasn't just the girl who baked on weekends. Or that I stopped waiting for people to see me." His eyes darted away. "You never told me what Nuvexa really was. You said it was doing well, but you never said you owned half the companies your friends brag about." I finished for him. "Would it have changed how you treated me? How you stayed silent while my family laughed at me?" He opened his mouth, but the words tangled in his throat. "I didn't want to make things worse. You know how your sister is. She's not the only one who underestimated me," I said quietly. "You had chances, Adrian. Dozens of them. Every dinner, every insult, every time they treated me like a stray. You just smiled and stayed quiet." His face fell. "I thought it was harmless." "Harmless?" I let out a breath that sounded too much like a laugh. "You think silence is harmless? Silence is how people learn they can treat you like you don't matter. He looked at me, eyes pleading. I love you, I say. You know that. I shook my head. No, you loved the version of me that made you feel safe. The one who didn't challenge you, who didn't outshine you. The woman standing here now. You don't even recognize her. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. When I realized that, I filed the divorce papers, I said quietly. His eyes widened. You what? They'll arrive Monday morning. You don't have to say anything. He took a shaky breath, his voice cracking. Please don't do this. I looked past him. At the ballroom, the fading lights, the half-empty champagne glasses. It's already done, I said. You can't build a marriage on selective respect. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The music from outside drifted through the open doors. Faint piano notes, soft and distant. Then I saw Valeria again, standing at the top of the stairs, her eyes red and swollen. She didn't speak this time. For once, she just looked at me, at Adrian, at the empire she'd mocked me for building. I say, she said finally, her voice small. I don't know how to fix this. You start by listening, I replied. And by working. She swallowed hard. I'll show up Monday. He nodded. Good. As she walked away, I turned back to Adrian. I meant every word tonight, I said softly. If people only respect you after they realize what you're worth, they never respected you, just your value. I slipped off my ring and placed it on the nearest table, watching it catch the golden light. It looked small, insignificant. Then I looked back at him one last time. Take care of yourself, Adrian. Maybe someday you'll learn that loving someone means standing with them, even when the world doesn't. He didn't follow me as I walked away. Outside, the air was cooler, the night calmer. My father was waiting by the car, arms crossed, his gaze steady. You ready? He asked. He nodded. More than ever. As we drove off, the lights of Sterling Manor faded into the distance like a memory I no longer needed. But the story didn't end with walking away. Because sometimes power isn't proven by what you win, it's defined by what you refuse to carry any longer. The night after the gala, I barely slept. Success can make noise, but peace, real peace, is quiet. When dawn broke over San Diego, I was already in my car, driving through the streets that had raised me. The scent of warm bread and coffee drifted from the small bakery where it all began. My mother's hands, my father's patience, the echoes of my grandfather's lessons woven into every loaf. I parked out front, slipped off my heels and stepped inside. The familiar hum of the ovens wrapped around me like a memory. My mother, hair tied back, looked up from the counter. Her expression softened, eyes heavy with something that wasn't pride yet, but maybe the beginning of it. Did you sleep? She asked. Not much, I said, smiling faintly. But I feel lighter. My father was already at the prep table, shaping dough with slow, practiced hands. You coming to help or just visiting? He asked without looking up. I laughed softly, rolling up my sleeves. You know me, Papa. I can't sit still when there's work to do. For the next hour we worked in silence, flour dusting the air like snow, the radio murmuring old love songs. It was grounding, almost healing. The bakery hadn't changed, but I had. Around mid-morning, the bell above the door jingled. Valeria stood in the doorway, her polished exterior stripped down to something raw and uncertain. She was in jeans and a plain shirt. No makeup, no heels, no armor. I came early, she said quietly. Didn't want to be late for whatever this is. Mom handed her an apron. Good, she said simply. Start by cleaning the display case. We open in 10 minutes. Valeria blinked, as if waiting for someone to stop her. No one did. Slowly, she tied the apron around her waist and began wiping the glass. Her movements were hesitant at first, but steady. For once, she wasn't performing. As we worked, Mom glanced at me and said, You were hard on her last night. She needed it, I said. She did. Mom agreed, her tone softening. But so did I. I met her gaze. You don't have to apologize. She smiled sadly. I'm not. I'm just learning. The way you asked her to. That afternoon, the bakery filled with the smell of sugar and forgiveness. Customers trickled in. Old neighbors, families, friends. And for the first time in a long time, Valeria smiled genuinely while handing out pastries. By evening, when the last customer left, she turned to me. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, I said. Just keep showing up. She nodded. I will. Later that night, I returned home to the quiet hum of my apartment. No champagne, no crowds, no noise. Just peace. I stood by the window, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere down there, people were still chasing approval, status, validation. I'd spent years doing the same. But now I knew better. I took out my phone and typed a message for Nuvex's community page. Something simple, something real. To everyone who's ever been overlooked, your worth doesn't shrink just because others refuse to see it. Build quietly. Let your success speak in the language of peace. The post went live. Notifications started to pour in. Messages from small business owners, young women, dreamers who'd been told they were too little, too late, too quiet. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was proving anything. I was just being. The next morning, as sunlight poured across my desk, my grandfather's words echoed in my mind. True success is like a mountain under ice. People only see the tip. He was right. They'd finally seen the tip. But I knew where the strength really lived. In the unseen foundation, built through every moment I chose myself when no one else did. I lifted my cup of coffee, took a slow sip and smiled. Because this was what it meant to rise. If you've ever been the one people overlooked, remember this. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need permission to shine. Build in silence, grow in grace. And when the world finally sees you, let them know you were never waiting to be found.